I came across this Ripley's Believe It or Not. It says Mulai Ismail was the father of 7 emperors. Mulai Ismail of Morocco was the father of 888 children. In the turbulent period following his death, 7 of his sons succeeded him as emperors of Morocco, in the order stated in my drawing 1727 to 1746. Reference, Meakin's Moorish Empire. Then I found this. So this is the Moorish Empire, Budgett, Meakin, and it has illustrations and it has all kinds of different things about Morocco. Agoure in Morocco. The whole population of the town is descended from renegades. But remember what it was just speaking about? Agoura is a small town surrounded with walls of from 40 to 50 feet in height and built of tabia or consolidated rubble. It owes its existence to Mulai Ismail, who held the throne of Morocco from 1722 to 1757. One gate alone gives entrance to the palace, and in this respect, as well as in the architecture within and without, it much resembles the Qasr of the Sahara described in the writer's Tafile. But it owns one feature of curiosity which was lacking in the desert, for almost without exception the entire population are descended of renegades and Christian slaves of the time of Mulai Ismail. But they calling them renegades, and they saying they were slaves, but people don't have the right to fight for freedom and self-determination, but they call them renegades. With the addition of stray renegades who have been sent there since. Probably no such cosmopolitan place exists in the world, for its 300 or 400 inhabitants are representatives of no less than 13 nationalities. There we go, speaking of nationality, always with Moors. Each family remembers and is proud of its origin, the Arab equivalent being applied as surnames. The family in whose home the writer spent the few days of his visit were Fiamish, while the next door neighbor of one slide was an elderly female, whose father, as Englishman, had become a renegade some 80 years since, and who quickly tired of it, leaving a wife and daughter the neighbor in question. The other neighbors were the descendants of Spanish gypsies, the head of the family being Absalom bin Mohammed el Gitani el Espagnoli. Islam. Absalom bin Mohammed el Gitani el Espagnoli. They were particularly proud of the Gitano, gypsy, part of the surname, and begged me not to confound them with the ordinary Spaniard. Because all that came from Moors, man, everything. Whom there were many descendants in Agoure. The ancestor of this gypsy family was 2 generations back. He had left his country, they naively told the writer, because he was not on good terms with his sultan, who wanted to imprison him because afraid of his influence. And we were speaking about the Moorish sons, the 7 sons. Again, being afraid of his influence. Probably it was more of an affair of the police courts than political intrigue. The Ulad el-Alaj, sons of the converts, as the inhabitants of Agoure are called, have entirely, except in 1 or 2 cases, lost the type of their European ancestry, and through marriage, no doubt, are as largely Berber in appearance as the wild tribes that surround them. They speak among themselves both Arabic and Berber. We're speaking about the Moors, and both, curiously enough, with a strong foreign accent, easily distinguishable. They are exempt from all taxation, but have to serve in the Sultan's army, where they perform the duties of cooks and butchers. Geographical Journal. Anxiety is felt concerning the position of Fez. Since the defeat of the Sultan's troops by the rebellious tribesmen on March 26, the Sultan has been a practical prisoner, and his brother, Mulai Ismail, has been reportedly proclaimed the ruler of all Morocco. And that's what I'm talking about. If them 7 sons, I don't know if this has to do with the 7 Ali sons and the Battle of Karbala and Abbas Ali and Hussein Ali and Zainab Ali and Ashgar Ali, all the 7 sons that was killed. But anyways, he was claimed the ruler of all Morocco. The latest news is to the effect that the victorious tribesmen surround the city. If the place is completely besieged, it must soon surrender on account of the lack of food and scarcity of water. And that's the same thing that happened in the Battle of Karbala, as they kept them from all the water. The means of resistance too are slight. When Cuba's Congress convened in Havana, the message of President Gomez was read in both houses. And here we go, getting into Havana, bro. I didn't even know this came into the Cuba. I was just found the Mulai Ismail. When Cuba's Congress convened in Havana, the message of President Gomez was read in both houses. It congratulates the Republic on the unexampled prosperity of the country and on the reign of peace and order. The president points out that the sugar crop is good in spite of the lack of rain, and that the national debt has been reduced by $3,465,000 in the last 2 years. So they talking about they in debt, like how the U.S. speaks about. So that's not national. That's being a beggar nation, correct? Always being in debt, having to raise a ceiling. So yeah, we have other demonstrations in regards to like Ali Mola and just different Moorish descendants that they pushed out, and then they would start calling them fanatics and pretenders and just different stuff like that in the newspaper. The Avalanche of Lies, Noble Ali was speaking about. They would call them the pretenders of the throne, the Moorish pretenders, but they know who you are. Go look at the image I found of Ali Muhammad where they're carrying him in a cage in front of all the public. You know what I'm saying? The red flag has no place in this country, he said, and believers in it have no place in this country. A mayor who does not enforce the law against the red flag is not fit to hold office, and people who believe in the red flag should be driven from the country. The red flag forbidden. The governor of New York is to be congratulated on signing the bill for forbidding the display of the red flag in that state. There is so much loose talk about freedom of action and freedom of thought, which means, as a rule, full license to commit any kind of fronted antisocial absurdity, that it is time it was made clear that the red flag is in the names category with any other symbol that means active violence and actual revolution. You hear this? They're speaking against anyone wanting self-determination or actual revolution if their government is found to be tyrant. The red flag is not a banner of political parties or the emblem of association that stand for the freedom discussion of all public questions, including the character, method, and manner of government. On the contrary, it is the emblem of those who have decided against the existing form of government. But if you find that it is a tyrant government, free display of it means potential revolution. The only reason that violence and revolution through violence do not follow its display is the small number of those who rally to it, and who would overthrow existing order to secure they know not what. Everyone knows this, and it is only the casuist and sophist, unusually not in the red flag group, who pretends that the flag stands for nothing more than the harmless banner of humane, if international organizations. And we're going to get in further what this red flag is. Sheer humanity is not the doctrine preached at meetings. Yes, it is the uplifting of humanity, where the red flag is flaunted. And it is not taught to the young in radical assemblies. The red flag radicals are too financial to be dishonest about it, and they would be the last to deny their revolutionary intentions, even though their parlor admirers would cover over these frank ideas as to the righteousness of violence with sugar-coated phrases. Hey, that justice is last. They come to you in love, truth, peace, and freedom, and then you still violate. Justice must commence. As for Americans, it has been well said that there is enough red in the American flag to cover any kind of private or public meeting that looks to a redress of grievance, to a change in conditions, or to reforms in governmental methods. We know that this Christian United States operation is not working. We know this. And the banner, which is the symbol of doctrine that would make all freedom of speech and action in government procedure impossible through a welter of anarchy, is not only not needed, but should be prohibited in the exercise of that reasonable protection which free government should give to secure those fundamental liberties, which they're violating every day by you abandoning it. Liberties which ensure its orderly continuance in the interest of all the people. Philadelphia Public Ledger. So they really speak down on revolution and everything. You know why? Because we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, self-determination. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So they don't want a revolution, brothers and sisters, because they know once a revolution starts, because once that happens, they know that that's on their way out. Elmer E. Tamblyn, son of E.J. Tamblyn of this city, has prepared a valuable essay in academic style concerning the history of the red flag, and here it is. In pagan mythology, the great divinities which ruled labor, agriculture, the orchard, and garden were represented as clothed in the red of the sun's rays. Among the early Romans, white, azure, and purple were the colors of the ruling class. Red, brown, dun, and black the colors of the workers. The derivation of the word flag is variously explained as coming from words meaning to float, a flame, and a whip. At the head of the Roman armies on the march were lictors' armies with scourges, bundle of sticks and axes called fasces, with which the common soldier were kept under discipline. The early whip was a broad band of leather, which often left a great red scar on the back of its victims. And in the previous demonstration, we spoke about France, or the whip was known as the symbol of French rule in Morocco. The early whip was a broad band of leather which often left a great red scar on the back of its victims. It is not impossible that this suggested the use of the red flag in the first revolt of the plebeian Roman against his master. Certainly the first flag in the Roman army was a red one and carried by the Roman working men, who would not go into battle without the emblem distinctive of their class. It is said that the Roman captains sometimes hurled these flags ahead of their soldiers in order that they should rush on for their recovery. Finally, in Rome, red, which had formerly been the common color of the workers, was forbidden them by law, as it was centuries afterward in Germany. Gradually, then, the color began to be worn by the patricians, and after the massacre of Diocletian, when the working class was almost exterminated, red as a distinctively plebeian color lost much of its historical significance. But it had been carried into France and other northern countries, and during the Middle Ages a great many of the trade organizations had as their emblem the red flag, either plain or with the emblem of the craft added to it. And that's that 5-point star. The craft is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, brothers and sisters. The official flag of England for a century and a half was a red flag with 3 golden lions. And that early flag is now the most honored of the parts of the composite standard of England. A red flag, either plain or with a pine tree, authorities differ, was carried at the Battle of Bunker Hill, which we know as the Continental, right? At the Battle of Long Island, the red flag bore a rattlesnake Pulaski carried through the Revolutionary War. And red flag made by the wives and daughters of Moravian farmers. Moravian. Red was the color of the people's emblem in the French Revolution and in the Revolution of 1848, and was adopted by the International Socialist Party in 1864. The International replaced the French tricolor with the red flag of international goodwill. The red flag has been carried by the people in conflict, but it is a mistaken idea that it is primarily an emblem of conflict. Red is recognized among the nations as the emblem of peace. So what was that New York brother talking about in regards to the red flag? Internationally, the International replaced the French tricolor with the red flag of international goodwill. The red flag has been carried by the people in conflict, but it is a mistaken idea that it is primarily an emblem of conflict. Red is recognized among the nations as the emblem of peace. The Merchant Marine of England carry a red ensign indicating that the ships are engaged in peaceful occupation. Occupation though, right? The small 3-cornered red flag at the top of the mast has a similar significance with many nations. The Red Cross is everywhere recognized as the emblem of mercy and peace, as adopted by the socialists. But yeah, I was also reading though how they use that to occupy Morocco and everything, because they also have the Red Crescent and they have the the Red Cross, but they used the Red Cross to get in them lands and when there was war going on, and they ended up making buildings and occupying. The red flag typifies life as it is from the earliest days. It typifies the blood bond, the common ancestry of all mankind. And that's Noble Drew Ali with the uniting of Asia, right? It typifies revolution, not vengeful, but orderly planned. And just like it was talking about, when the government is tyrant, it has to be abolished, man. And we go right back to the original foundation. It typifies revolution, not vengeful, but orderly planned, forcing society ever onward and upward toward a civilization under which the human family will not be divided by classes, and the red flag typifies peace, brothers and sisters. Upside down flag, St. Louis, August 25th. The United States flag on the flagpole in front of the Civil Courts building here flew upside down, the international signal for distress, for 5 hours recently before the error was discovered and corrected. So a upside down flag is the international signal for distress, right? I've heard other Moors talk about it means distress, you know. The brother Stay Silent was the one who he's the one who really got me to look up the flags again, and I started going through this demonstration because he was showing the Moorish flag, and he was saying that it wasn't just, you know, a civics thing, but it's also divine. The international signal for distress is an upside down flag. So the prophet was calling out to the all nations, his plea to the nations for assistance in uplifting of fallen humanity. He was calling internationally a signal of distress for his people. And they didn't help, brothers and sisters. The Delaware Enquirer hoists the flag of Breckenridge and Lane upside down and calls it the Disunion nomination. While the two wings of the Unterrified are fighting in the Diamond State, the friends of Lincoln will bear off the prize. But in regards, upside down and disunion nomination. So disunity as well can be called upon for this flag being upside down. The discord going on with the Moors. Then I found Canada being an English colony, her flag is the same as that of her mother country, with the addition of a round crest bearing a bear in the lower right corner. So the occupation of that territory is corporately known as Canada, but it just lets you know that it was a colony, which means it's been colonized. That's why the only one up there that has any kind of de jure authority is Grand Sheiks, like, you know, Canaan Land, Cujo Grand Sheik. He's a Grand Sheik of a national movement, a divine and national movement. That's way more de jure than a English colony. You know what I'm saying? That's acting in colonization operations, brothers and sisters. So don't call it Canada. And any of you that do, man, y'all are agents. It specifically said Canada is a English colony with the assistance of French and whoever else wants to try to get finance